It's called a promo,
Shut
kid.
your
And
mouth,
if you want to
John.
be the big dog, you're going to have to learn how to do it. So go ahead.
You ready? No! I said, are you ready?
That was good. Glad you finally decided to pull that giant stick out of your butt and have some fun for once in your life.
You're uneducated marks! You sit there on your phones tweeting out your opinions like they're worth a damn. Let me explain something to you people. You don't know shit!
And I'd like to think that maybe this company will be better after Vince McMahon's dead.
A, Tony Khan's a smart businessman, so is his family. They're not going to go back there next year. B, Wembley Stadium is not going to have them back there next year. And they announced that like the day before this event. Also, stop fucking taking pictures of the crowd and just enjoy wrestling. Who cares if there's 81,000 people there? WWE lies about attendance all the time. All the fucking time. Vince McMahon admitted it. He admitted that
they count the vendors, the people in the back.
All the people working. When they were in Dallas for WrestleMania and broke all kinds of records, they admitted that they counted the people working for WWE, for the stadium, for the food vendors, everybody. They counted all those people. So if you want to say that Tony Khan is skewing numbers, I sound like such a fucking AEW mark right now, but I don't care because it's such bullshit. Just fucking enjoy wrestling.
That last part, man, that's not exactly what this episode is about. That was Tommy Paradise from the Run-In podcast, and that's not exactly what this episode is about, per se, attendance or anything like that. And I also am not trying to sound like a fucking AEW mark. That's not why I made this show. But the premise of what he's saying, and especially that last part, is why I'm here. Just enjoying wrestling and being a wrestling fan. And this is a bit of a random episode. I'm recording this episode today off the books. It's kind of a little bonus gem to listen back to in the future, if you will. Although, what I need to say should be said now. So, whenever it is you hear this as a listener, just know that this needs to be said today. Because tonight will be the start of, I fear, something I don't want to happen. Tonight will henceforth be known as, from this day forward, the Tuesday Night War. Maybe calling it a war is a little bit extreme, I will say. It's more of a battle. But the blatant competing of AEW Dynamite and WWE NXT on Tuesday night is what we're talking about here. What I'm talking about. Unfortunately, my handy-dandy co-host Dylan isn't here today to talk with me about this because, like I said, I'm just doing this out the blue, off the books. This is something I feel is important to address right now. Take 15 minutes out of my day so you can maybe take 15 minutes out of your day and we can have this conversation because that's what this podcast was created for. And this episode, I guess, in many senses, is like a mission statement. That's what I made this podcast for, was to reintegrate a forum of neutrality into the community, into the internet wrestling community. Let's be specific, because that's what this is about. And there's too much toxic tribalism in the internet wrestling community that needs to be eliminated. We're better than that. And situations like these tend to bring out the fucking worst in people for whatever reason. And maybe it takes breaking down the fourth wall to say this, but it's not that fucking serious. It's just wrestling, and we as fans need to just enjoy wrestling. And that's who I am as a fan. That's who I've always been as a fan. I want to live in a world where both companies can exist, where I can watch Dynamite one night and NXT another. If they're on the same night, I can watch a replay online. Like, it doesn't have to be this fucking cutthroat all the time, but for whatever reason, we as a community cling to what we like or what caters to us and deem that as the best product out there, and now we're gonna live and die by that. And anybody whose opinion might be different anybody whose taste might differ from what yours is now the enemy. And it doesn't need to be that way. It truly doesn't. And so, like I said, this episode, this random little gem today, is kind of just like a wrestling in the middle mission statement. Like, here's who we are and what we stand for, and our main goal here is trying to reinstate positivity and neutrality within the community. Try to eliminate the hate. Not trying to spit bars on the mic here. It's just, it doesn't need to be as toxic as it continues to be day after day. And this Tuesday Night War, quote unquote, doesn't need to be a thing. Both companies can exist, and I want to live in that world where they do. Also, a little bit of a side note so I can retract my brain here. Happy birthday, Tony Khan. I know the likelihood of Tony Khan listening to this message is very slim to none, but that guy is my fucking hero, and I 100% will wish him a happy birthday. Also, happy birthday, Ilya Dragunov, NXT champion. And that's another thing. AEW is my preference, and I'm not ever shy about admitting that. I'm not shy about admitting the fact that I, as a fan, like AEW better. And so I look at it kind of like a taste bud differential. Like, I can have a better taste palette for AEW, and then my co-host Dylan can have a better taste palette for WWE. But why would we as fans negate the fact that we love pro wrestling and hate each other because our taste palettes are just different? Just because he likes pork and I like beef doesn't mean we can't grill at the same barbecue. You understand what I'm trying to tell you here? You don't have to fucking fight with somebody for liking WWE just because you like AEW better. And flip that reversal around. You don't have to fight with somebody who likes AEW just because you like WWE better. Here's a fucking thought. You can like them both. That's so crazy. Wow, I never thought of that. And also, you don't have to like them both. There's nowhere in the pro wrestling rule books written down in stone where it says one or the other. You can't like both. And nowhere else in history other than the Monday Night Wars, when WCW actually became a threat to WWF, did this become a conversation or this become an opinion. We had Impact, TNA, whichever you want to call it. We had them for years, and nobody once brought up the fact that, I can't watch both. I have to like one or the other. You're stupid for liking TNA. And yeah, maybe nobody saw TNA as big of a threat, but at the same time, the tribalism didn't exist then, so why does it now? Maybe it did. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. And by the time you hear this, you'll probably have already watched NXT or Dynamite, maybe even both. But I hope when you sit down and play this and listen to this, it really allows you to sit, think, and maybe even start a conversation with your own friends, with your own little internet wrestling community, with your local wrestling community, your wrestling clubs. I hope it initiates that conversation that we here at Wrestling in the Middle are just trying to have ourselves. And please understand that you don't have to live in a world where it's one or the other. One doesn't have to be better than the other. And as we acknowledged on our last main episode of Wrestling in the Middle, WWE right now, in whatever aspect and for whatever reason, is being overly competitive. I can't say why. I mean, it's kind of obvious to me from the outside perspective, with Endeavor acknowledging that WWE and UFC never should have been fighting with each other, but instead should have been fighting with AEW to eliminate the actual real competition. And I know they named other wrestling companies past that, but that was the first one off their tongue. And since that statement was made, Triple H has been named the head of creative again, which good for them as a fan. I'm really happy about that. Vince McMahon being pushed out of creative is a good thing in my book. That's of my opinion. not of Dylan's. Again, anything said here today is of my opinion, not my co-host Dylan's. He is not here to speak for himself. So, but all of that said as well, I don't blame Tony Khan or AEW for pushing back when the competition, especially the competition being the fucking head honcho of pro wrestling, excuse me, especially with the competition being WWE, the head honcho of pro wrestling, I don't blame them for fighting back. I just don't like it. As a fan personally, I just don't like the cutthroat competition. And maybe it's fabricated. Maybe it's all fabricated and this is all just an elaborate scheme for both companies to make money. And if so, touche, you got me. But the thing with me is, I don't want to see the toxic tribalism, as I said, be brought out in the wrestling community, the internet wrestling community. I don't want to see that come about from this, from two companies feuding and just making money off of each other. And I hope both companies succeed. I just don't want to see down the line another instance of the Monday Night War where now AEW has to be bought out by WWE because they can't fucking survive otherwise. And that will always, from a personal standpoint, and again, my opinion, not Dylan's opinion, not my co-hosts, this is one half of Wrestling in the Middle right now, that will always be my resentment with WWE, is the fact that they sit there and they will try to suffocate any other business in the pro wrestling industry. They will sit there and they will try to suffocate any other business in the pro wrestling industry. And there's a DVD I've actually suggested to a couple people called Beyond the Mat. And at the top of it, it says, the DVD Vince McMahon doesn't want you to see. And one of these days, I'm actually hoping to break that down with Dylan on a Through the Table. But within this DVD, you see the backstage shit with Vince McMahon and even some of the talent stealing moves from wrestlers just trying to get a tryout, going to small indie companies and stealing shit from them, stealing talent with no remorse. The amount of no remorse shit I've seen Vince McMahon do after watching that DVD, it all adds up as to why his character in recent years has been in question. And again, I'm sorry for calling out the blatant, but Vince McMahon turned out to be a scumbag. A lot of our childhoods were based around Vince McMahon's product, and I get it. I fucking get it, and that's why I still don't want to see WWE be tarnished because of it. But truth be told, Vince McMahon is a piece of shit, guys. What do you know? I guess, in many senses, that's a great note to end on. And please, please, please don't hold any of my opinions against my co-host, because truthfully, I just want to sit down and have this conversation. And I want to do it without the toxicity. And anybody who wants to join this conversation with us, with me, you can tweet at us at WrestlingMiddle on Twitter /X. Or you can tweet at me personally at 5starbacilli. My co-host handle is at Talon is Hollow. And I know he has no part in this episode, but I know also as a friend he definitely will listen back to this and support me, because he understands that that's what we're here for, is to talk about it. And so I urge you, after you've watched the Tuesday Night War, quote unquote, and after you've listened to this, just sit, think, talk, have a conversation, and try to keep it neutral, please.